Canada is about to make one of the most important military decisions in its modern history, choosing a new fleet of 88 fighter jets, a decision worth tens of billions of dollars, and a decision that could reshape North American defense, NATO strategy, and even US-Canada relations. But what happens if Canada walks away from the F-35 and chooses 88 Swedish Gripens instead? Tonight, we break down the real consequences, the geopolitical chain reaction, and the surprising winners and losers if Canada shocks the world and picks the Saab Gripen E/F. This is the inside story the world's defense giants don't want you to hear. So what actually happens the moment Canada officially announces, we're buying 88 Gripen E fighters? First, the shockwaves hit Washington. The US expected Canada, a founding F-35 partner, to choose the American jet. After all, Canada invested in early development. It's part of NORAD. It interoperates with the US Air Force every single day. But instead, Ottawa chooses a jet designed outside the US defense network, one optimized for Arctic independence, lower cost, and Canadian assembly. Immediately, three things happen. 1. A diplomatic freeze. Washington isn't angry, but it is deeply frustrated. Canada breaks the F-35 political momentum. A top ally rejects America's flagship fighter. 2. NATO alarm bells. Europe sees an opportunity. If Canada picks Gripen, it validates the idea that NATO's future doesn't have to revolve around a single US-built aircraft. 3. A global media explosion. Every defense outlet in the world asks one question: how did Sweden beat the US in a major fighter competition? This is the beginning, but only the beginning. If Canada chooses Gripen, it unlocks a package no other country has ever received. Sweden has already hinted at it. 1. Final assembly in Canada, a brand new fighter jet assembly line inside Canada, something no other option offered at this scale. This becomes a jobs powerhouse, a transfer of aviation expertise, a permanent strategic asset. 2. Deep technology transfer. Saab is famous for allowing nations to modify their jets. This is the opposite of the US model, where everything is controlled from Washington. Canada gains access to source code, the ability to integrate Canadian-made weapons, freedom to upgrade the jet without US approval. This is huge. 3. Arctic-specific modifications. Gripen was born for cold weather. Canada gets custom Arctic enhancements, ultra-cold start capability, anti-icing upgrades, long-range data links for the north, better dispersed operations on ice or damaged runways. 4. Massive industrial offsets. Every dollar Canada spends goes back into Canadian manufacturing. This is one of the biggest reasons Sweden would win. NORAD is built on one principle. Canada and the US must work together in the same airspace using synchronized technology. So what happens if Canada introduces Gripens into that system? 1. Interoperability challenges. Gripen can absolutely integrate with NORAD, but the US must allow data sharing. This includes encrypted data links, sensor fusion pipelines, missile warning networks. This requires new agreements, and the Pentagon will negotiate hard. 2. NORAD modernization becomes multinational. Instead of NORAD being an American-driven upgrade, Gripen forces it to become a joint technological environment, with Sweden now indirectly involved. This is unprecedented. 3. Arctic air policing shifts. Gripen is exceptional in remote deployments. It can operate from frozen highways, remote airstrips, mobile maintenance units. The RCAF suddenly gains true Arctic independence, instead of relying on southern bases and US support. 4. New weapons considerations. Canada may choose Gripen-compatible weapons like Meteor long-range missile, Iris-T RBS-15 anti-ship missile. This means NORAD must integrate non-American weapons into the North American defense ecosystem, a first in history. Let's be honest, the US would not be happy. Not because Gripen is bad, but because Gripen reduces US influence. The Pentagon's response would play out in 3 phases. Phase 1. Diplomacy. US officials publicly say, "We respect Canada's decision." Behind the scenes, they pressure Ottawa on weapons integration, NORAD compatibility, supply chain dependencies. Phase 2. Industrial pressure. The U.S. may reduce Canadian participation in F-35 manufacturing work. Canada risks losing contracts worth billions. Phase 3. Strategic recalibration. Washington reassesses how much it trusts Canada to align with U.S. tech standards. This doesn't end the relationship, far from it, but it changes the balance. Canada becomes more independent, more European-leaning in defense procurement, and less connected to U.S.-controlled networks. For the Royal Canadian Air Force, Gripen means a total transformation. 1. Lower cost, higher availability. Gripen's operational cost is extremely low. This means Canada can fly more hours, conduct more Arctic patrols, train more pilots. 2. Faster maintenance cycle. Gripen's modular design allows rapid turnaround. Some maintenance can be done by minimal crew, a huge advantage in remote bases. 3. Canadian weapons on Canadian jets. This is a massive shift. Canada could integrate future Canadian-made missile systems or sensors without foreign approval. 4. Training pipelines change. Pilots receive Scandinavian-style training, emphasizing electronic warfare, dispersed operations, data-centric combat. This creates a new generation of RCAF pilots with cutting-edge skills. NATO would be watching very closely. 1. Sweden's influence skyrockets. For decades, Sweden was outside NATO. Now, it becomes the supplier of a major NATO member's fighter fleet. 2. Europe gains confidence. European nations see that they don't always need American fighters. Gripen gets renewed interest from Czech Republic, Hungary, Philippines, potential new operators. 3. The F-35 monopoly breaks. If Canada, a top U.S. partner, rejects the F-35, other nations may reconsider or negotiate harder. 4. NATO logistics diversify. NATO no longer relies on one fighter type for 70% of its missions. This strengthens alliance resilience. Domestically, Canada sees massive benefits. 1. Thousands of new jobs. Assembly lines, avionics, software engineering, maintenance, supply chains, all built in Canada. 2. A new aerospace ecosystem. Canada becomes the Western Hemisphere's Gripen hub, training, upgrades, maintenance, export, support. 3. Canadian universities and startups join the defense world. Software-based jets like Gripen need cyber talent, AI integration, EW specialists. This drives innovation across the economy. 4. Canada gains strategic independence. No more depending on U.S. approval for every upgrade or weapon. This is arguably the biggest invisible benefit of choosing Gripen. When a deal this big happens, some players lose. 1. Lockheed Martin loses a major F-35 sale. Loses political momentum. Loses Canadian industrial contracts. 2. U.S. defense influence takes a symbolic hit. Canada breaks away from the American procurement orbit. 3. Global F-35 narrative. The message becomes, even close allies can walk away. This is huge. So what does the world look like after Canada chooses Gripen? Canada becomes more militarily independent. NORAD evolves into a more diverse system. Sweden becomes a major NATO supplier. The Arctic becomes the world's newest high-tech battleground. And other countries reconsider the F-35 versus multi-role alternatives. This isn't just a fighter jet purchase. It's a geopolitical turning point.